We are live. We are live. Hello, everyone. This is Billie Jane with PCAL Financial Group, Partnership in Creating a Legacy. I love to help families to create a knowledge legacy using the gift of education and our ESPs. I'm also really passionate about helping families to invest and protect their legacies using insurance. And finally, I love to help businesses not only mitigate risk, but also enhance their business legacies with some creative insurance solutions. Now, today, I am so excited to be back with another Accessing Untapped Funds series discussion. But today, we are talking about athletic scholarships. And I am so honored to have some amazing panelists here with us to talk about athletic scholarships and how kids can benefit from that. Now, we know that it's been a difficult time for a lot of families, especially during COVID, as we look at our investments and not sure what the values of those portfolios are going to look like, or it's been a hard time being able to save as much as we want. So I wanted to start this series to get our kids involved, to help them to become equipped with some tools to help them fund their own legacies by accessing untapped funds. Last time in April, we chatted about academic scholarships, and now we're talking about athletic scholarships. So I want to introduce you to some amazing guests that we have. I want to introduce you to, first of all, Miss Sharon Butler. She
Hello.
is otherwise known as Coach Mom. She's an amazing woman who's been helping so many student athletes to get connected with recruitment opportunities for scholarships. She's going to tell a little bit more about herself. I'm also going to introduce you to Mr. Daquan Blair, who is actually a current athletic scholar in university right now on athletic scholarship for football. He's going to share with us some of his insights. And then finally, we've got the amazing Carly Campbell. She is a trailblazer. She actually, she acquired athletic scholarships for hockey and actually even took it a step further playing professionally. So amazing woman that we've got here, also sharing her experience and insights on that. So, Sharon, I'd like to turn it over to you just to say a few words. Let people know a little bit more about who you are.
Thank you, first of all, Billie Jane, for hosting us. Really appreciate this opportunity and always love to connect with
Yay.
families and also with other panelists to learn. I'm always in a process, obviously, of learning. So as you indicated, Coach Mom, my real name, many people ask, what's your real name? It's
Yes.
Sharon Butler. I started this organization about 5, close to 6 years ago now. And I started this journey. I have 3 young men. I have 3 boys, and my youngest of 3, a number of years ago, about 5 years ago now, wanted to find out more about how to get to prep school and ultimately wanted to play basketball in the US. So that's how my journey started. And if I can just add, it's coach because I am a level 3 coach here in Canada. I used to coach college basketball for approximately 15 years. And
Awesome.
I'm a mother of 3 boys. I
Coach
played
Mom.
basketball, right? I played basketball at the university level as well and
Wow.
represented Canada in the sport of netball. For those who don't know that sport, it's a great sport to look up, a really good team sport. So I
Mhm.
work with families and I work with student athletes navigating this whole process of recruitment, but it's more than just trying to get a scholarship. It's also about academics, really important. And it's
Yes.
also about how to achieve your best athletic, prowess, your profile, how to become the best athlete possible. So that's what I do in terms of working with student athletes, clubs and organizations, helping them understand the NCAA requirement to get a scholarship. And of course, the sport of basketball is blossoming here in Canada as well. Go
Yes.
Raptors. And as a result of that, there's a lot of interest.
Yes, yes, awesome. Before we go on, I just want to recap for anyone that has just joined us. We're here chatting about accessing athletic scholarships, really to help student athletes to access untapped funds. And we've got amazing panelists. Sharon Butler just introduced herself. She's Coach Mom. If any of you are joining us, just say a quick hi. We'd love to know who is with us. Have your pens and paper. If you've got questions, please do, share your questions and we'll do our best to monitor and address those questions for you. So now moving on to Daquan. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Daquan. Daquan, are you there? Looks like we froze. Okay, so why don't we go on to Carly, and then when Daquan comes back. Oh, hey, Daquan,
Okay.
you're back. Can you hear us?
Sorry. Yeah, my Wi-Fi just kicked me out. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Oh, am I up?
So yes, please, you're up. Yeah. Sorry, I just turned it
Perfect,
over
no
to you to share a little bit about, who you are, a little bit more about who you are with our audience.
Okay, yeah. First and foremost, again, I just wanted to throw it back to you and give my thanks. The work that you're doing here is amazing. And I think having this resource for individuals
Sorry, Daquan, we're not hearing very well. There is a bit of
Can
a
you guys
background.
hear me now?
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
perfectly.
that's
Go
better.
ahead again.
Okay. I just wanted to say first and foremost, thank you to you, Susan, for putting all this on, right? I mean, people don't get the opportunity to see the amount of work and the tireless hours you've put in behind the scenes to really make this all come through. So we do appreciate that. And then obviously, I'm joined by a lovely group of strong, amazing, and brilliant women here.
Yes.
We're all going to give you guys some really great insight today. So, I mean, first and foremost, like if when Coach Mom was speaking, you guys didn't stop and go get a pen and paper, you might want to go ahead and go do that right now. Because everything you're going to hear here from the four of us, you're going to be able to take something back, first and foremost.
Yeah.
So, my name is Daquan Blair. I'm a current third-year political science major at Queen's University. I also am a member of the varsity football squad. Prior to that, I was a Division I athlete at Howard University. Yes, the only real HU, historically Black College University, where I also had the opportunity to play Division I football. It was an amazing experience. I studied political science and sport management. And a little bit of what I'm going to talk about later on today is through my story, I was actually put in a position where I had to make a decision. And the decision was to stay stagnant and sort of be okay with just not being comfortable, or pivot and make a move to ensure that I kept on the track that I set out for. So I've had experience from going high school here in Canada to having the opportunity to play 2 years over at a prep school in the States. And then that led to the transition of Division I athletics, now bringing me full circle back to being a youth sport athlete at a premier academic and athletic institution.
Awesome. So that's going to be some interesting insight about being in the NCAA and then, being in youth sports. So that's very interesting. Yeah. So Carly, if you can share a little bit about your background with everyone.
Yeah, I'm going to sound a little repetitive here, but I'm going to echo what Daquan and Sharon said. This is amazing that you're doing this. And from a personal standpoint, it's been really great to meet Daquan and Sharon and you, Billie Jane, because we hadn't met before and we all have such interesting backgrounds. So it's really neat to hear what all of you have to say. And, we're in an interesting situation right now with COVID. So this virtual type of learning is so valuable at this point. So thank you for doing this. And I'm so happy to be proud of it, or to be part of it.
Yay.
So I've been an athlete my entire life. I played competitive soccer, competitive hockey up until I was about 13 years old. And got to a point where the sports started overlapping. So I decided to stick to competitive hockey. And that took me a lot of places in my life. And I'm so thankful that I was able to achieve the things that I did playing hockey. I was an NCAA Division I sport, was able to play at Clarkson University in upstate New York for 4 years. And then was fortunate enough where that positive experience over the 4 years led me to stick around and actually help coach that team and earn my master's degree while I was at it. So I was there for about 6 years. In terms of after university, I took a little bit of time off, and then in 2016, took my talents to professional women's hockey and decided to put my skates back on and played in the CWHL for the Toronto Furies for 3 years. Fun fact, was part of the first cohort of women to ever get paid to play hockey in Canada in a professional league. So that,
that's right, Daquan.
It wasn't a lot, but it's nice to have been part of that. And in terms of the insight that I'm going to bring today, it's what I learned as an athlete and how earning that scholarship has helped put me ahead in some parts of my life in terms of finances and whatnot, and how that's been amazing for not only myself, but my husband and my young daughter now too. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So first of all, just want to quickly pause, want to make a quick shout out. Renee, Rochelle, hey, thank you for joining us. If you guys have questions, please don't hesitate. Questions, comments, share them. We are monitoring and would love to address those with you. So, I do have some questions here. First of all, just being current, how are you guys doing? I mean, I know we've been in COVID for a couple of months, but how are you guys coping through this time? Let's start with you, Carly, just since you finished off. We'll start with you, go the other way around.
Well, my husband and I are in a very fortunate scenario where both of us still have our jobs. So I cannot complain about anything because we still have our jobs. Our daughter is not going to daycare, of course, so we have her at home. So navigating the landscape of working full-time, both of us, while taking care of a toddler who you cannot leave alone. One day we turned our head around for 5 minutes and she was standing on top of our table. So there's been a lot that we've learned over this time, but I'm thankful that we still have our jobs. We are healthy, and we're managing perfectly fine. Like I said, nothing to complain about here.
Great to hear that. Daquan, how are you doing? How like, as you finished your schooling, did you have to do exams and all that kind of stuff online?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a transition, so the last end of the semester switching to online. But, having taken online classes, it wasn't too bad. And there was a great push from professors to sort of support students, not just student athletes, but students with transition. As in terms of how I'm doing, I feel great. I'm doing great. The biggest thing for me has just been establishing a routine and then trying to stick to it as much as possible. I found that, especially coming from being a student athlete, the biggest part of my day personally was a routine, right? You know what you do and when you do it. So taking that and translating it, I'm not spending 8 hours, 9 hours, I don't know, 8 to 3 p.m. in the bed, just sort of turning around.
Yes, I get that. Real quick, just want to shout out Sandra Boyne, hey. And no, it's an honor to do this. I think this is such a really good conversation. And Lennox, thanks for joining us as well. Okay, so Coach Mom, how are you doing?
How am I doing? I echo Carly in the sense that I am absolutely fortunate to still, be able to work, but working from home. But certainly, for sure, it can be a challenge. It is nonstop. I feel busier at home than I was in the office. And really, that routine and structure that Daquan mentioned, it's so important. So I do well some days, to make sure I get up because I'm an early riser. I typically get up and that's when I do my workout. No doubt, I've had moments of lapse. I am not perfect. But other than that, everyone in the household is healthy. My 3 young men that are here had, finished school online. Sounds like sometimes that was a bit of a challenge for them. So helping them sort of still talk through that process and navigate. Like I said, they're young people. They're still, they themselves are not perfect, but, just getting an understanding. And the student athletes and the parents that I work with, that's also another stressor. In terms of them trying to figure out, am I going to go to prep school this year? Am I going to go in the stage? Should we be crossing the border? Will the borders be open up? So helping them really to stay sane and just sort of process this, this information. And of course, trying to calm the waters as well.
Yes. We're going to talk a little bit of that, especially before we close. We're going to talk about how COVID has been, affecting student athletes and some strategies for them during this time. So, as we talk about in terms of, tapping into funds through athletic scholarships, I'm curious to know, about your own experiences. So let's start with you, Sharon, because I know that you just mentioned that, you also you helped your own children as well as other children. What in your personal journey, like how much of your kids' education was funded by athletic scholarships?
So there's 2 stream of thinking here. So there's the high school, that prep school component, which is growing exponentially in Canada. So again, 5 years ago, we maybe had a couple of prep schools, and now we have like over 30, 40 schools across Canada. So that's another stream of, scholarship, although from a prep school lens, they don't like to call it scholarship because it is high school. So they say financial aid. So, I'll give a really quick example. My son went off to high school, prep school in the US when he was 16. And the cost of the school with, it's a private boarding school, was $62,000 a year. Right. No, I didn't pay that money. I don't have that kind of money to pay. I love him, but I don't love him that much. There's two other kids to worry about. But we got a substantial package, right?
Yeah.
So I was paying $10,000 a year, right? Which for me, a private school education, which is, in terms of an
Yes.
educational component, not saying it has to be private school, that's massive. And the fact that, it's getting him ready for university. And then he went on to play to get a scholarship at Southern New Hampshire University, where he played there for 2 years. And that was a full scholarship in terms of, the Division II school. So, people often ask in terms of, well, prep school, why would you pay for prep school? Well, realistically, I got back my money that I paid for high school, the 20,000 roughly, because, his scholarship was worth close to 70,000 US dollars on a yearly basis. So, realistically, I made that money back. So yes, if you didn't get that scholarship, I'd be like, you're coming home, because I'm not paying for that.
Wow.
Right? But
yeah.
It was his dream. And of course, that's what we do as parents, was to support. So, those are some of the pieces. And of course, AAU teams, some AAU teams might be fully sponsored. That's a basketball team that might be fully sponsored. So you're not really paying the full fees, like everyone else. So those are some of the examples and ways in which sport and some form of scholarship has assisted with his academics so far.
Now, you mentioned AU. What does that stand for?
Yeah. So AAU is, I'm sorry, I like to throw out a lot of acronyms.
We know the acronyms.
I didn't write that one down. But it's really essentially, it is a club team that travels. It's a summer traveling team, essentially.
Oh, okay.
So it provides exposure to college coaches.
Got it.
So that's the main purpose of it. So it's really only for during the summer months. Yes, some teams continue in some sense throughout the year, but most of the time it's just very much, almost you can say from, call it February, March to August, because of course, within the US system, there are some main exposure months for athletes. So we call it the live period. And so, which has changed somewhat. So that's what the AAU is meant to do, is provide exposure. So a lot of the time there's this large exodus from Canada to the US, because that's where obviously a lot of the college coaches are, and they go out in the summertime and go to all these various events and tournaments.
I see. So Daquan, you, Sharon was talking about the prep schools. You went to a prep school. Was that fully funded for you? And then you went on to NCAA, and what kind of like funding did you get through that?
Yeah, so I was actually fortunate enough, following my grade 11 year, I did what's called a reclass, where when you go down to the States, oftentimes, just with prep school, they tend to want you to reclassify for, first and foremost, academic purposes, because the experience that you get can, one, be a little challenging at first to adjust to that sort of private boarding school lifestyle. And everyone comes from different types of schools. So that extra year is crucial to make sure that you don't set yourself up for failure if you have the position and you're fortunate enough to take that extra year. Taking it is amazing because academically you get to do that transition. And if there's anything that may be difficult, speaking from the eye perspective, math was a big thing that going down south was hard for me. I was able to get an extra year to really go through that transition from, my public school education down here, which was great, don't get me wrong. Just down south, the private schools was way more accelerated. But yeah, I was able to, without getting too sidetracked, I was able to get a full scholarship there. Thanks, and then, as they call it, financial aid, as Coach Mom mentioned. And then through that, it had always been, and I wasn't letting anything. Yeah, so can you hear me?
So, we can hear you a bit better. I think you have to stay maybe a little bit closer.
Okay, no worries. The goal was always to play Division I football and get a scholarship to do it, but it wasn't necessarily just because I had dreams of pursuing a professional route. But the biggest thing for me, and the staple that had always been in my life, was at an early age, I had someone say something and it stuck with me the entire way through. It was, don't let football use you, use football. And I think that's applicable to every single sport. And for me, that was it. Like Coach Mom mentioned, her son, myself, we were afforded to go to, these are the best schools in the country academically. Sports aside, you're talking about a network that you get to have a great network, and then academics that open up so many doors. And that's because at a young age, I was able to, and I'm not going to take credit for realizing it. I had someone put it in front of me that I couldn't let this sport consume me and use me. Play it because I love it. Play it because it's what brings me passion and joy. But at the back of my head, always remember, you're doing this because you want free education, and you're doing this because you're going to use the sport to help open up doors while you're on your journey, and you're setting yourself up 5, 10, and 40 years down the road. Because whatever university you go to, if it's not a 40-year decision, you probably pinhole yourself.
That's amazing. So when you were at NCAA, you know, it was full scholarship while you were there? And
no,
then...
so I got injured coming out of prep school, which sort of took off the full scholarship offers off the table. And I was lucky enough, because of the academic portion, my grades were high enough where I could harness a half athletic scholarship and fill the rest up with academic.
I think that's an important point. I think we're going to touch on this too, about the importance of academics. Like, it's not just the, you know, physical prowess. We need to have something going on to, you know, and that's really, you know, I really want kids to really focus on that, getting their education and how that helped you through that challenging time through injury, right?
Well, yeah, and you know, not to be morbid, but one of the things that sort of in any sport, and you ask any coach this, Coach Mal, I'm sure you'll agree with me. There's one thing that you can guarantee in every sport game you go play, in every season, it's that. There's two things. You're always going to have a winner and a loser, and you're always going to have injuries. Everything else is up for grabs. So in knowing that, when you have those two things, and I didn't learn this until, you know, I sat in a Division I offensive football meeting and had a coach who had a shot at the NFL and everything was taken off the table from a knee, blowing out his knee, tell us this straight up. But, you know, hopefully someone can hear this on the front end and really take that. I'm not saying you can't go play professional, whatever your sport is. I'm not saying Division I is not it. What I'm saying is it's great that you pursue all those things with a full head of steam and you try and blow down every wall, but really have that understanding that you need to have the academics to fall back on, because you never know when it's going to be your last snap, your last shot, your last slap shot, whatever it is.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, Carly, if you can tell us a little bit about your whole experience in terms of the amount of funding that you got, because you did your undergrad through NCAA. And as you mentioned, you then coached and you continue to get some funding, which is awesome, to help fund your master. So yeah, tell us a bit about that.
So my 4-year scholarship, my hockey scholarship, was a full scholarship. But one thing we want to keep in mind is that scholarships are renewed, or at least they were when I was there. Scholarships are renewed every year. So it's not a 4-year contract that you're getting, which puts a little pressure in terms of performance, because it's very easy for a coach to claw that back at the end of the year. So it was fully funded for me for the 4 years. I performed, I did what I needed to do. And just to pivot off what Daquan was saying from the academic standpoint, so each team only has a certain amount of scholarships to give out, and that's athletic scholarships. For a coach, you might end up having 1 scholarship left and 2 kids that you want to sign, and both of them fully deserve that scholarship. If you have other kids on the team that do happen to have an extremely high academic, standard, or are very smart, what they can actually do is start to reallocate those funds and end up giving a scholarship to those last 2 people. So in Daquan's example, he was able, let's say he was offered a full scholarship, but they realized that they could split that scholarship in half and have it be half academic and half athletic. What you could do is take the other half of that athletic scholarship and give it to that other person that you think deserves it. So there's a reallocation that you could do, just based on the fact that these scholarships are renewed every year. So always have that academic side in your back pocket, not only for yourself, but you could also be helping out another teammate in the long run who deserves a scholarship just as much as you do. So yeah, it was a full ride for the 4 years. And then I was fortunate enough where I had performed throughout the 4 years, developed a great relationship with the coaches, developed a great relationship with the school as well, where once I expressed the interest to actually stay and complete my master's and continue to help the team, they were able to formulate some scholarships for me to actually help fund my master's from a financial standpoint. Now, was it fully funded? No. But the great thing was that my parents had put aside some money for my education way back when. they didn't necessarily have to use it for my undergrad because of hockey. So what they were able to do is they were able to fill in the remainder of that gap for my master's degree. So it all worked out in the end. From a financial standpoint, I never realized the gravity of my situation, where school down in the US is very, very expensive. And I was sitting next to one of my classmates who I went through undergrad with, and I was sitting next to him in my master's degree as well. And he was talking about the financial burden that he had. And he was so happy to get this master's degree, but he was at the end of it going to walk out of school with over $200,000 in debt. And I will never forget that conversation, because it hurt my heart knowing that I was on the complete different end of the spectrum, and I didn't have that burden, and I was going to be able to get ahead financially in different aspects of my life because of that athletic scholarship and that help. So I consider myself very fortunate. Did I work my butt off for it? Absolutely. Do I think I deserved it? Absolutely. But the stars aligned where my hard work paid off from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I appreciate all of those testimonies. You guys sort of touched on so many things. One about the opportunity to get access to prep schools. So get that private school education, get exposure to that even before, and then to have that funding throughout your undergrad. And in like the case of Carly, that continued on to her post-grad studies is amazing. And I also love the fact that, Carly, your parents also saved for your future, even though you did get the full academic athletic scholarship. That money was there to support your post-grad studies as well. So, so a note to parents, if you can save something for your kids, I encourage you to do so. Even if if your kids have a full ride, that's, extra money to get them off to a good start. So thank you so much for that. So I wanted to talk, I don't know, Sharon, if you can share with us with any sort of like insights and opportunities for students who are thinking like Canadian versus US schools, and like the opportunities and I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because, whenever we're thinking athletic scholarships, we're always thinking going down south,
Yeah, no doubt. To echo what Carly said, the reality why a lot of young people want to go down south is for those full rides, right? Because again, the NCAA literally, and well, colleges and university, I don't know, there's close to 1,107, colleges and university in the States. So the opportunities for Division I, Division II, Division III, there's NAIA, there's junior college, and there's also another one that I'm forgetting. There's so many scholarship opportunities. And, as she was mentioning that, there's the head count sports, which is the football and basketball, because they usually give football and basketball as like one of the two main sports in the US. And so they typically have, 12 to 14 on their roster, and they will get the full rides mainly. When you get to Division II and NAIA, for example, they start to do what's called the partial scholarships, and they start to patch scholarships together. So long story short, the full rides are in the US versus in Canada. Now, is Canada getting better? Absolutely. I always say Eastern and Western Canada, they've always given their athletes a bit more than Ontario in terms of the athletic component. In Ontario, for example, to get an athletic scholarship, it's technically really more financial aid that they also phrase it at. It's like an FIS, that's the name of the document. And so with that, if you go in with an 80%, you can get some funds towards your athletic, right? But it's also really more academic inclined. Right. So that's the tricky part. In the, Eastern Western Canada, they often will say, and this is minus OSAP, right? So this is not a conversation about OSAP yet at all. Eastern Western Canada, they can provide you with scholarship to say, we will pay for your tuition. So the average tuition maybe unless you're in medical school, is between like maybe $4,000-$6,000. Maybe Daquan, you can help with that piece.
Yeah, you're looking at 45, 50, 6,000.
Yeah. So, some colleges will say, our university, will say in Canada, we'll pay for your for the year on a yearly basis again. We'll pay for the academic component of it, but you have to pay for your living, boarding, food, etc. right? So technically that's not a full ride. And that's always going to be the common denominator between the US and Canada. Yes, there's
Right.
always, you know, a bit of a debate whether university in the States is better than universities in Canada. At the end of the day, yes, you do have families that cannot afford, right, to for their kids to go to. Yes, we are getting better, but they can't afford it. So if they can get a full ride, as you mentioned, using their, you know, their athletic prowess to get that full ride, that, you know, they're going to try get it. And it's a bit of a status too, you know. I mean, no doubt sports here, especially basketball, is getting really good in Canada, but definitely it's a status, right? So, you know, for kids to say, I got a scholarship, right? Because even now in Canada, we're talking about, you know, signing that letter of intent. We never had that before, right? That's basically an offer that a university is giving you from an athletic side. So, you know, definitely mimicking a lot of the US system going on. But those are some of the, you know, there are opportunities here for sure in Canada where academically, again, and I can't stress that enough, like you've all done, academics is so important towards your athletic. And sometimes our young people forget that, because the reality, even from an NCAA or, you know, US perspective, you've got to maintain a certain GPA, they call it, you know, grade point average, that you've got to maintain even to be eligible, along with your SAT scores, to be eligible for a scholarship in the US. So that's why the academics is so important, because they're going to test that early. Because how are you going to manage your schoolwork, your practices, and all that's required of you, right? And not focusing on your academic. As Carly mentioned, it's offered on a yearly basis, and that's an easy, you know, easy decision for a coach. If you can't make it academically, no problem. You can't get your scholarship, next. Right. So that's why that's really important. But each college and university, I mean, the best thing to do for, you know, folks that are thinking about scholarship, especially on the Canadian side, because we don't have that, you know, body like the NCAA in the US that tells you exactly what you need to do. You really, well, we have youth sport on the university front here in Canada, but really it's always best to call up the schools and ask the questions directly in terms of how does the scholarship work, what kind of scholarship do you give, etc. Because again, unlike, you know, the US, there is the NCAA is the governing body of whether from a Division I and Division II perspective, whether you're eligible. And that eligibility is on the academic side. It's not even about the sports side. You've got to now go show a coach your talent to get the offer, but it's the NCAA, for example, or the NAIA, or, you know, the National Junior colleges that also tells you if you're eligible for a scholarship on those different levels.
Wow, no, thank you for that. So I actually want to ask Daquan a question, but before we go on to that, just because there is that discussion about the fact that, you know, you have to basically be eligible every year for the scholarship. Is there opportunities for students who don't, let's say you're going to a Canadian university and, you know, you have the opportunity to apply for scholarships while you're there, like as an athlete? Can you do that?
So,
or do you need to do that like from year one?
no, you can, throughout your entire you know, stay at a university. A thing that's not known by a lot of people is there's a lot of different sources of money, whether it's through your particular, you know, for example, me as a politics student, if I was looking for more money, at the end of every year, you can go to your department and they have scholarships. What essentially happens with their budget money is a portion of it, for most universities, to common practice, just rolls over. And because they can't take it, it's given out as scholarships at the end of the year. And it's just, you know, people who come and say, I need some money to help me continue my academic studies. Another big thing is universities are constantly giving away, you know, academic bursaries, and then giving away scholarships that are on need based, aside from OSAP, and for a complete amount of different things. So yeah, you do have that ability once in school. So let's say you wanted to chase your athletic dream and you didn't get a scholarship coming out of high school. You have that ability now to still fund your education and play that sport. Because if, you know, if sport doesn't give you that money, it doesn't mean it's over. It just means, as I mentioned, you now got to pivot and figure out, okay, what are the other pieces of the puzzle I'm going to put together? And then similar to, you know, an athlete that loses that eligibility does have the ability now to prove their worthiness again. You are going to be on a very, very steep incline. But speaking from having teammates who have been down that road and bounced all the way back a full 180, I've had teammates who have fully lost their scholarships, been ineligible to play. Because when you lose your eligibility, it's not that just you lose your financial money. A big part of it too is if losing money wasn't enough, in Canada, you lose a year. In the States, you lose a year of eligibility. So now you're just practicing all year long, helping your team, but you actually can't compete. Your coach can't play you even if they want to. So it's really understanding that, like, yes, you're a professional, whether you're in the States or Canada, and more so at Division I level. But at the same time, man, you're a professional at a university. So yes, you're working that part-time job as a student athlete, but that student part, there's a reason it's first.
I love that. I love that. No, that was great. Thank you so much for those tips, especially the Canadian versus US. And Daquan, you actually mentioned, before we move on from that, you mentioned something about, and I know, Sharon, you said that, there's the prestige of, going down south. But Daquan, you shared something interesting with me as well about your experience being down south and then in school here in Canada.
Yeah, so, for me, a big portion of it, and something I want to harp on to go into that, is sort of, when you're looking for scholarships and looking for money, understanding that every coach who contacts you, whether it's a Division III school in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, or it's Alabama State or Alabama Crimson Tide, entertain those coaches, because those are literally opportunities for free education that you're passing up if you think you're quote unquote too good to talk to a Canadian school, too good to talk to an NAIA Division I, Division II. Because there's three things, and I'll tell you all three, having now, the way my eligibility is played out, I've been around to sort of figure out the game. The first being coaches talk and coaches move all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The second being that if you think that you're too good for a school or pass it up, you may sort of find yourself, what I'm going to tell you now, where my story in particular, I made sure that I kept in contact with every single Canadian coach that showed interest in me coming out of high school. And I made sure that I showed interest in high school. I didn't burn any bridges. And then when I had an injury that sort of, to be very honest, I had a doctor look at me and be like, 30% chance you can quit sports again, coming when you wake up out of the operating room. That bedridden, now being able to move for a month, and now here being able to play again, I wasn't able to continue that Division I path, but I was able to pick up the phone and speak to a bunch of schools in Canada and now have options. It's all about having options. Because like you said, if you're looking for scholarships, you want to have options. Talk to all these schools. Find out what it is you like. Find out what it is you want. But yeah, my experience was that being down south, I had the ability to, receive an amazing experience. Don't get me wrong. Flying on the private jets and playing in front of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, is an amazing experience. But equally put, the experience in Canada is second to none. There are universities here that are doing a world-class, they're running this like a professional Division I athletics program. They have facilities that mimic, if not excel, Division I program. And I mean, I'm not just saying this having looked on Google Image. I'm saying this firsthand, having played a 13-game schedule and then come down to Canada and play a full season here and travel around to all these different schools with, I didn't play this year because of the injury, but I was able to travel with the team. And having traveled with them, seeing all these campuses and speaking to all my friends back here, you can get a great experience. But again, it's about not closing any doors on the front end and doing your due diligence to really look into where you want to go, what it is you want to get out of school. Because if you, God forbid, you break your arm or you can't play your sport that year, you still got to go to school. You still got to wake up and pass the same buildings every day. If you don't like the place, it's going to be a long 3-4 years.
Thank you for that, Carly. Just since we're talking about that too, in terms of the maintaining your relationships and because there are different schools. I would love to talk a little bit about your experience, because you had, in your case, multiple offers, and I think it'll be kind of interesting for people to know what that experience was like. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. So women's hockey, in terms of the scholarship offers, has not been around for that long. The first ever Women's Frozen Four, which is the national championship, took place in 2001. And I started my freshman year in 2006. So it's not that long ago. I might be aging myself, but it's not that long ago. And growing up, getting a scholarship was not on my mind until probably grade 10 or 11, when I started getting my letters. And I actually got my first letter from Princeton in grade 9. just expressing interest. And that started to kick things off. And I didn't realize how serious things were until grade 10, when the letters really started coming in. The coaches started coming to my house for lunch or dinner, and it gets very confusing. It does. The way that it worked is I was able to choose 5 schools where I could go to an official visit to, and that an official visit is when the coaches express interest. And what they do is they pay for you to go down there, whether it's the flight, your meals, your travel, and you spend time with the team and you understand what the dynamic is like with the team. You go to classes, you see what the school is like, you see what the professors are like. So I was fortunate enough where I ended up doing 4 of them out of the 5 because I had made my choice before that 5th visit, and I figured there was no point to go visit that school. But at that age, it's so hard to identify what you want. They ask you what you want to do. They ask you what you want to study, what type of school you want to be in, let alone whether or not you're actually going to play the sport that they're recruiting you for. So it's a lot to think about. And I think I had fairly good values growing up in a small town. I knew that I wanted a smaller campus. I wanted smaller class sizes. I went to Boston University for one of my visits and sat in a classroom with 400 people for a freshman course. And I just felt like I was part of a crowd, and that's not what I wanted out of education. I wanted smaller class sizes. So that's why when I stepped on campus at Clarkson University, I felt that. It's in Potsdam, New York. It's in a small town. The towns revolve around hockey. Everybody loves hockey. Hockey is the only Division I sport at Clarkson University. Otherwise, the rest of the sports are Division III. So the facilities they had the best arena in the ECAC at the time. It was a fairly new program. And I went to a class with 20 people in it. And the teacher learned my name, and we chatted after class. And that wasn't something that I got out of a larger school. So when you're looking at the different universities that you want to go to, there has to be an element of home when you visit campus. You have to feel like you're an individual and people know who you are and people are legitimately interested in what you want to do, because it's very easy to get lost in the crowd and lose yourself through that 4 years. As an athlete, it's great because you have your team, but similar to Daquan's points and Sharon's points, right? It's about the academics. And if you can't thrive in the academic setting, if you can't thrive in class and get the help that you need when you need it, it's going to make things very difficult for you, regardless of how well the sport is going. So when it came to the multiple offers, my parents had a very serious conversation with me about what I wanted. And that was, I want to feel like people know me. I want to feel like I'm at home, and I want to feel comfortable on campus. And so that's how I chose my school. Clarkson had 3,500 students at the time. It's a private business and engineering school. Graduation is every student at the school. There's 300, 400 students graduating on that day, and everybody is part of one big family. And that's what I love. And on top of that, what helped as well for my master's is, because the school was so small, because I was a hockey player, I actually got to know the president of the school very well. And that relationship helped shape those scholarships and shape that financial package for me going into my master's, because I was known, I had a brand, I was recognizable, and people had a positive image of me. So I was able to form that at a small school. Whereas if I went to Boston University, if I went to University of New Hampshire, if I went to Dartmouth, I don't know if that would have happened.
Wow, no, thank you for that. Thank you. It's important to think about some of those things. Sharon, we were just talking also a little bit about, some of those requirements and building those relationships. What are some things that students should be thinking about? I know we had a small conversation about social media, but talking about the requirements, right? What students need to think about.
Yeah, no, for sure. That brand. So I'm going to jump on that.
Yes,
Carly.
brand.
That
Carly,
brand
thank you for that.
Is huge, and it can impact you, not even just for sports or during school, but for life. So when I work or I present different workshops and seminar, I have my own phrase that I've termed what makes you recruitable is your academics, your character, and your talent, in that order. Of course, you know, in terms of from a talent perspective, there's a lot of really talented student athletes, and they're getting better younger. It's really scary, which is amazing. It's good, but you know, it's getting a scholarship is completely like it's so competitive in all the fronts. So what you know, what's the better way to jump to the forefront is by minding those three things. So your academics, understanding that, you know, if you're going to post-secondary, your coaches doesn't have to hire somebody to walk you to the classroom, because that happens, right, with some folks, right? Oh yeah, the stories you hear are absolutely incredible, right? Because they're afraid, because if not, and if they don't meet the academic standard, they can't stay on the team, right? And if they're, you know, maybe the best players, for example. So, you know, you know, making sure, again, you know, if you hear nothing else from this little workshop, you know, your academics is just as important. The character piece is the next piece for me. And that's where social media comes in. Because when a coach is recruiting you, the first thing they see is your mixtape, or they might, you know, I mean, before they even potentially come and watch you live. Right. And then the next thing they ask is, you know, well, tell me about, well, and then the next thing they ask is about your grades. How is this kid? How are their grades? And then they say, how is this person? Is this a good person? Because you're going into a family. And I mean, both players, former players also, you know, Carly and Daquan mentioned that, right? It's a family environment that they're bringing you into.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure you display, you know, the character, right? Positive characteristics. And so, and especially if you're going to be on a scholarship, some Division I, high Division I. Let's talk about the Kentuckys. Let's talk about the UConns. You know, for women's basketball, those scholarships can run you $100,000 on a yearly basis, right? So that's a lot of money. So for them to invest that money in you, you know, I always tell a lot of the student athletes that, you know, when you watch a game on, you know, TV, you watch, you know, Duke play. How many coaches do you see on the bench? And they were like, you know, there's 4 or 5. I said, yeah. Do you know what the responsibility of one of those coaches are? It's to search out everybody's social media. So when they're recruiting you, they will search, they will research you to death, because they want to make sure they're offering, you know, the right person, the right fit for their team. And yes, that is also on the academic side and athletic side, but also, again, you are, you know, going to be a good complement to their team. So, you know, I always say, obviously, your social media is your digital footprint. It lasts forever, because, you know, when we're hiring, when you are, you know, folks are hiring people these days, what do? They Google them, right?
Yeah.
So got to be mindful of the things that you like, you share, you retweet. You know, have to be very mindful. And I get a lot of young people contacting me through social media, and some of them I follow, some of them I don't know very well, but I will jump on their social media and say, take that down. That is not appropriate if you're trying to be a really serious student athlete. And for the most part, they're like, sorry, coach, sorry.
Coach,
like,
mom.
no. That's where the mother side comes in. Oh no, I've had to do that many a times. I'm like, are you serious? Take that down. But again, you know, some of them, they don't know better, right? And I always try to encourage parents. You know, when I was parenting my youngest from afar, because he was at prep school at 16, I trolled him. I was all over his social media. And anytime I saw something inappropriate, I gave him the choice. Either you come off social media altogether, or you manage your friends on social media. You're the one that's trying to get a scholarship. So you have to be mindful of those pieces, because, you know, I also follow a lot of coaches, and you see it every year. Lost another recruit today because of social media. So they watch you. And I mean, I think in 2006, the NCAA passed a rule that now coaches can, you know, retweet, right, and like, you know, a potential student athlete who they're recruiting. So that means they're gonna even dig into your social media even more. So really, really important to be mindful of that. But more importantly, too, it's also for parents to still provide a guiding hand to some of our student athletes on social media, because some can be, you know, irresponsible.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you about that. Like, it's not just what you post, but what you like, what you retweet, wow. That's important. Yeah. That's important to know. And when you talked about student characters, and because I'm also familiar with, you know, competitive sport. My middle guy loves hockey. My daughter played some hockey too, Carly. So, but yeah, my middle guy is, you know, AAA hockey, really loving it. And, you know, I just lost my train of thought. We were talking about social media. Parents, because I know in competitive sport, you know, there's the term of parent cuts. So do schools actually look at parents when they make it that
Yeah.
decision as well?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just jump in quickly and leave it to the rest of the panelists. I always say that the family is recruited, not just the student athlete. They recruit the family. So I always allude to, if you got that crazy mom, aunt, grandma, uncle in the stand that can bring attention, negative attention to you, that can hurt your recruitment as well, because they recruit the family right into the school environment. It isn't just going to be the student athlete. So absolutely.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. No, that's good to know. So, just to maybe around to everyone, like what are the sort of that you guys shared of so many tips, but if there's one key lesson you want to leave with our audience about, your experience, what you've witnessed, anything like that, what would be that one key lesson that you want people to take away? Carly, let's start with you.
I was just saying, do you want to go first?
Sorry. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I would say focus on the present, but set yourself up for the future. So focus on when it comes to developing your skills, right? Don't go thinking about, where I want to get a scholarship, so I'm going to do what I need to do this game to get that scholarship. No, focus on your team and being a good teammate and winning that individual game, and then you take it step by step. But set yourself up for the future. Have a positive brand, right? Have a positive image on social media, and think about from a financial standpoint, since this is about financials and athletic scholarships, think about from a financial standpoint how your decisions now might impact things for you after graduation and once you actually get into the adult world.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be it. Focus on the present, but set yourself up for the future.
I love that. I love that. And, when we talk about the financial aspect for you, it was such a big head start that you could become a homeowner sooner than most students, and all those kind of things. So
Yeah.
that's really important. I appreciate that. Daquan, if
Yeah,
you
I
had
sort of-
one lesson to leave with guests.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Because throughout your entire 4 to 5 year career, you're going to be put in so many stressful situations on the field, in the classroom, and in meeting rooms with your coaches. And it's just having the ability to say, okay, this is something I don't like, and I'm going to welcome it, because all it's going to do is make you stronger. Think about it. Everything you couldn't do before at one point that you can do now at one point in time was a huge obstacle. Take myself as a story if you need, but I came back from playing through a torn labrum, having to have my entire hip reconstructed in terms of the bone, and then now putting myself in a fortunate position where I have a master's degree sort of taken care of, so long as I uphold my academic and athletic paralysis. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. At the time, the situation was really, really difficult. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and say I smiled the entire way through. No, but I persevered, I pushed through, and on the other end of it, there's always going to be some sort of light.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think it's important, and I appreciate you sharing your experience in going through injury. But I love that it didn't hijack your future, and that you continue to, you pressed through that and you overcame and have some great, future, post
Oh
injury.
yeah, we're just getting started.
Just getting started. I love it. I love it. What about you, Coach Mom?
So mine's a two-parter, so I'm cheating a little bit. Building
Let's
on
hear
what
both
Daquan
parts.
said.
Let's hear both parts.
Building on what Daquan said, resiliency. With the work that I'm doing with student athlete and even my own children, I think it's so important that parents, obviously coaches, anybody who is impacting and dealing with young people are teaching them these skill set. It is so, because resiliency is a skill, right? And skills that we can teach. And so that's so important. So when your young, athlete is having issues, talk them through it as opposed to jump ahead and try to solve the problem for them. Because as a student athlete, there are many, many, many issues, not to mention from the academic lens to the injuries, to the teammate that I like, I don't like, to the coach I like, I don't like, the coach don't like me, like there's all of these things. And I always like to say that, I typically, one of my mantras, I coach for life, not just for basketball, because there's so many life lessons in sports. But the one, if I could tell parents again, and student athlete, if they're listening, that resiliency set is really, really important, because no one is going to have, and this is the second piece, all your path are always going to look very different. And I know when we have our role models, and like you got the Daquans, and I went to Division 1, and so someone looking up to him want to go to D1, it might not look the same, but it doesn't mean that you're not successful. So set that whole success factor doesn't look the same for everybody at all. Not everybody can play Division 1. Not everybody can play youth sport, and get a scholarship, because getting a scholarship is it's not easy, and it's so competitive, because now, I use this example, I think in the US, they throw out a stat where there was like, I don't know, 495,000, males playing basketball. And the percentage that, and the percentage that actually gets a scholarship is like 0.25%. Like it's tiny. It's really tiny. And so, again, your path, if it's sports that you're passionate about, what else can you achieve through sports that doesn't have to be that scholarship? Because getting that scholarship, not saying it's impossible, it's a lot of hard work, but that resiliency skill set and understanding that your path don't all have to look the same way. I think I counsel more families and student athletes on that more than anything else. Your path is your own path. If you're meant to get to D1, you will get to D1. If you're meant to play youth sport or college ball, you will. I find now, though, that a lot of student athletes are just happy to play post-secondary, wherever that is. That the trend is definitely shifting, because before you heard a lot of D1, D1, D1. Actually, you're getting a lot of D1 athletes coming back, right, to Canada. Right. And playing, because again, back to that whole environment, Carly, of being really loving that environment. Sometimes people select a university just for the hype, and then they get there, they're not getting the playing time, it just isn't the right fit, and then so eventually they find the better fit for themselves. So resiliency in your path, not necessarily always looking the same as everybody else. That's my nuggets for today.
I love that. I love that. I actually was a student athlete. I didn't go on scholarship. Track was my thing.
Okay.
But it was awesome to play. Like when you talk about you're just happy to play, and it was awesome. It was awesome playing for my school, running for the school. So definitely, and it's great to have something else, having another network of people at school, because school is a lot, academically. So to having that it's great. So thank you for those words of wisdom. Before we close out, Sharon, before we even go to this one, because I did want to touch on quickly, college, like Canadian college opportunities, like for scholarships. What does that look like for somebody who is college bound as opposed to university bound, let's say here in Canada?
Yeah, so I mean, just really quickly, so the big difference between college and university bound, same thing, somewhat in the US as well, is the stream of, what you take in high school. So academic stream is what takes you to university here in Canada, and the applied stream is what takes you to community college or junior college, JUCO, in the US. And so the difference between them has to do with, again, the number of students, because number of students, same thing at the university level, number of students equates, more money potentially to your athletics, therefore being able to offer more help. So I coached at George Brown College for many years, and I coached in the dark ages, and at that time I think I had three scholarships to offer, and they were $500 a semester. Now that has changed exponentially. I'm hearing that each student athlete are getting almost like 2,500, but they put it towards paying your tuition first, which is great. And I think that's a great move from OSAP way back as well, where they put it towards your fees versus giving the money in your hand, so folks, young people, can go
run
and
away,
spend it, right, etc. So so the college level, same thing. Each team can hold, between 12 and 14 players, and each team also has a number of scholarships that they offer. And that's based also on the academic piece. So no matter where you go, college or university, the academics play a role, because you have to maintain that. If not, you can't stay on a team. That's the other thing. So whether or not you're even on any type of a scholarship, each team, you have an academic requirement that you have to meet on a yearly basis. And if, well, it could be a semester basis. And if you don't meet it, I think one year when I coached, unfortunately, out of my team of like 12, I literally, 14, sorry, no word of a lie, I lost 7 players academically because of academics.
Wow.
And it was just, because in the college system, much like in the university system as well, you fail one course, you're on probation, right? You fail 2, you're out, you're done. You're done in that program. And so as a result of that, if you're not in a program, you can't be on a team. Right. So again, here we go, circling back to the academic being so important.
I think that's
but
the
yes,
key message.
there's funding. And also the other piece of funding, other than the bursaries as well, is many colleges and university run camps. So if you play basketball, if you play, soccer, they might run camps, and then they hire the student athletes to work the camps as well. And so that's an additional way that some can get some funds to put back towards their schooling as well.
I love that. So we're going to close out soon, but before we do, I wanted to just chat a little bit about, and I know we're just at time, but I want to talk about COVID and how that's affecting our student athletes right now, because we know kids aren't going back to school until the fall. Don't know what that impact is to sport over the summer. Like I know my son, they never had their tryouts for hockey, and probably not making it back onto the ice till, they're even saying maybe even January, right? So we, what can we share with students to sort of get through this time, and what hope and what kind of opportunities are there for them in this crazy, unprecedented time?
Yeah, I think just, as I mentioned before, and other panelists mentioned, having a routine is huge. Making sure you're active and you're not too, feeling sorry for yourself because you don't have the ability to play your sport right now. Because there's going to come a point in time when, things change and we hear that we can now go back to playing our sport. And if you're out of shape, or, if your sport requires you to be a little physical, and physically you can't meet those demands, all of a sudden you're going to be way behind the 8 ball with everybody else who stays consistently working. I'm not saying go run 5 miles a day, and, you don't have to have a lot to be able to do anything. You can do a bunch of non-body workouts. And the second thing, it's funny you say that. We had a meeting, some of us, with our head coach last night, sort of on the status of the team and where the season's going. And the best thing he told us was, the longer that we don't hear anything is the better, because all that means is that behind the scenes there are individuals who are trying to make a season happen. So they're holding off on letting us know anything. So be optimistic until you can't, because at the end of the day, that's all you can really do. But I mean, the longer they don't tell us for your particular sport that you're not having a season, think of that as the better, because all that means is just people trying to make it happen, or some form of a season.
Coach Mom, any thoughts, any words to share getting through this time?
I do agree. It's a test. It's another test, right? For student athletes, and I do echo that. It's about being ready. I think I posted something of I don't know, last week or earlier, to say, if you got the call today, right, that we're back to sports, are you ready? Physically, mentally, right? So I know it's hard, but again, it's all a test. And I know a lot of people are worried, about their season. And again, especially because of the work that I do, will the borders open up in time, for example? But I do like that message of, being optimistic. That's really what I tell a lot of my student athletes and their family, like, hey, listen, I'm talking to coaches. They have their pandemic plans. They're working through, obviously, provincial government has to lift the orders and borders need to open up. But stay positive and think positively, because, what you think can also be manifested. So stay positive. Yeah, no, actually it's mind over matter, right? So being positive and keep working through it. Like you said, it's crazy time. It's not easy for anyone. But everybody would love sports to be back, but at the end of the day, it's about safety first. So regardless of, putting our feelings aside, it's about safety of our population first, first and foremost over everything.
Yeah. Carly, anything? I know, it's been some time since you've been in school and all of that, but do you have anything that you want to share related to that?
Absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think through this time, a lot of people are going to realize how much they love their sport and how much sport has an impact on their lives, and take the time to reflect on that. Because just think about the first time you're going to step back onto the court or step back onto the ice, how amazing that's going to feel. Why the fact that we don't know when that's going to be is scary. And I guess the lesson in that is the world is a big place and there's a lot of things going on, and your life normally revolves around your sport, but take this time to, learn about the rest of the world and how the planet is a big place and that there's a lot more things out there outside of your sport. But when it does come back, it's going to be great.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm going to pretty much try to wrap this up now. I know that Sharon, you were awesome and shared some resources. I thought, but maybe I can put that up on screen real quick for anyone who wants to take a look at some resources. For those of you who registered, I will be sharing this. For those of you who have not registered, I will post in the video, probably afterwards, how you can get that registration link so you can register and gain access to these resources. But I'm going to quickly share my screen. So let's see. So you can see some of the resources that Coach Mom so graciously put together for us. So if we can see here. All right, so she's got a number of websites. So Coach Mom, if you can just, high level, what are these resources that are available to families?
So I just, when you come to the whole athletic scholarship piece, which was obviously the title of our conversation today, these are just links to the various bodies that, provide scholarships. And this is where you can go to ask specific questions about, what makes you eligible. I know from a, US standpoint, Division I, Division II, again, the Eligibility Center, they've got some quick tip sheets that you could use to help you, starting from grade 9, for example, because that's when, the academic component starts. Unlike in Canada, for, Canadian colleges and university, they tend to look at your grades only from, grade 11, grade 12, maybe that 5th year. But in the US, they start looking at it from grade 9. And that's a mistake sometimes people make right off the bat. Because if their grade 9 year wasn't so great and their grade 10 year wasn't so great, and then they decide, okay, I want a scholarship, they might not be going that straight route. They might be doing, a pivot or a detour, so to speak. So these are just links that we provided that you can go to their website. And obviously phone numbers are there that you can call and ask questions. Sometimes these are not that easy to navigate, but calling and asking question or finding somebody in your community for sure. And of course, that's where I come in as, Coach Mom, to be able to guide families and parents.
Yes, awesome. And thank you for making yourself available. I also wanted to note Coach Mom's information for anyone who is interested to, connect with her. Her information is here, so you can reach out to her directly for support through and answer some questions through your own journey. And of course, I'm here for any questions. You need any support. If you want, to access any of this information, I am honored to share that information with you. Do we have any questions? Nope. Okay.
So
well,
there's one very quick last thing I can add, I just thought of. After you speak, Coach Mom, it's that there are going to be, for those of you looking to go Division I, there are a couple hidden costs that come up along the way. So, start to prepare for that. You have tests that you need to take. And if you don't do well the first time, you have tests you need to pay to take again. So really start to think about that. You have eligibility registration that towards the end of it, you need to pay for. So whatever your financial situation is, if it's something where you may have to plan ahead of time, whether that's 6 months or a year or a couple of weeks, make sure you do that so that you're not met with any sort of random expenses that now hinder your ability to receive a scholarship or chase something.
And if I could jump in there, prep school costs money. Daquan is very fortunate to get a free ride to a prep school, but the trend has shifted. And I'm not saying that no one can ever get a free ride. Obviously, maybe in the basketball world, if you're a LeBron, sure, somebody will take you in. But the reality is, prep school, the trend is that it costs money. And so that's another, important piece to understand and to start to save for as well.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. For all of you who have joined us, thank you for being here. So many of you guys have been engaged and commenting. Sandra, so much for your comments. Renee, I'm glad that this was really helpful to you, and you and hubby were glued to find out what's going on. Really appreciate it. Loved. Oh, Shireen, thank you for joining us. Hey, it's really great. Lennox, I knew you were the one that suggested I have this conversation. So thank you for that. And I'm glad you found this really helpful. For all of you, I will be, all of us are going, can jump on and make some comments, continue to ask some questions. We're here to help and to serve. I'm hoping this was really helpful. I want to thank you guys for your time and thank you for your patience. We went a bit over, but there's so much good information to share, and our panelists were so awesome. Thank you so much, Carly, for spending time with us and sharing your words of wisdom and sharing your experience. It was such an honor having you, taking a little time away from your little Kyson to join us. I really
She's
appreciate
sleeping
that.
now. I got to skip bedtime.
Look at you. You've got your evening. I love
Yeah.
it. Thank you. Coach Mom, Sharon, thank you for your words of wisdom. Thank you for sharing your time with us this evening. This was really insightful. I'm actually going to go back and watch the replay so I can learn some more of these tips that I can apply, with my own family. And Daquan, your words of inspiration and encouragement and your own experience, I think is going to be very helpful to students, especially, I love everyone's message about the importance of academics, but Daquan, and talking through your own journey through injury, the importance of having relationships, the importance of putting your academics first, how all of that has helped you to get through. Okay, so thank you so much. I am going to, if there's anything that you guys want to say before we close out, but I do want to thank everyone for joining us. Anything else you want to share before we close down the stream?
Thank you for
this
having
is
us.
great, everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. So I am planning to do another one. We had our first one about academic scholarships, this one about athletic scholarships. I'm thinking of doing another one, and you guys are gonna have to stay tuned. You need to join my page to find out the announcement of what's next. But if you've got ideas for what you want to find out, what your kids can do to, tap into monies to support their own funding, let me know, because I'm open to ideas, but I got some ideas percolating myself, but please do share. Natasha, thanks girl, says that I'm amazing. Yay, thank you. All of the panelists were amazing. So thank you all, everyone. Have an amazing evening. Stay safe, let's stay clean. And for those athletes, keep fit, keep your mind fit, keep your body fit. And I'm looking forward to our next chat about securing some untapped funds. See you later.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.